That's Danny not doing anything. It's
that's
serendipity.
That's having
the baseline is fucking chaos.
Listen, I sail out into the sunset. I have life jackets. Don't worry.
It's all we need.
What?
Lack of leadership creates leadership.
Oh, God. On this episode of the Fourth Part Podcast, what the secretary of Babylon Lodge has to fucking deal with every day. This is the Fourth Part Podcast, a podcast made by Freemasons to be enjoyed by all. The opinions of the hosts and the guests are their own and do not reflect any Grand Lodge stance or opinion. And now here are your hosts, the grumpiest past master and the OG Danielson. Welcome to the Fourth Part Podcast. I'm your host, the grumpiest past master. With me is my anxiety attack of a co-host,
Brother, the OG Danielson.
And our special guest for the second time,
Jimmy.
Brother Just Jimmy.
It's just Jimmy.
Just Jimmy.
Now you're going to have to create an Instagram account. Just Jimmy.
That's a good idea.
At Just Jimmy.
Just Jimmy's so adorable, too, that name. Who's that? It's just Jimmy.
It's just Jimmy.
That's so safe.
Yeah.
Right? It sounds safe.
Yeah, like...
There's
what's that weird shit going on in the background? It's just Jimmy.
It's just Jimmy.
So there's a story behind Just Jimmy.
Go ahead.
So when I left Epic, when I decided...
Wait. Is any of this going to get us arrested?
No.
No statute of limitations.
So everybody that I worked with had me in their phone as Epic Jimmy. Mm-hmm. I went and changed my name in everybody's phone to Just Jimmy.
It's just Jimmy.
Not Epic Jimmy anymore. I'm Just Jimmy.
I identify as just Jimmy.
Yeah.
So that's where that all started.
So you need to grab that Instagram handle immediately.
Just Jimmy.
Just Jimmy.
It's like, just do it.
I think I want to change mine.
To what?
I'm not going to say it on air because somebody might steal it. Unless I do it before then.
I mean, I'm looking up Just Jimmy right now.
No, I'm going to keep it the grumpiest past master. I think I might abbreviate it in some way, kind of, because it's really long to type.
No, you got to.
It's so long to type.
That's the beauty in it.
That it's 400 letters long.
The OG Danielson. The OG, like, come on.
Yeah. I never said that was a good name either, though.
It's not a good name, but it's unique. It's a brand. It's branded. It's got charisma.
What about Podson?
The Podson is it needs work. It needs work.
This episode's already gone completely off the rails.
It's after hours, scary hours.
Scary Marys?
No, absolutely
Scary
not.
Marys? No?
So, we'll
all right. So what did we ended off on? We ended off on has Masonry done any sort of a job of trying to adjust? And I don't say adjust as in we've mentioned to brothers in our lodge about saying to them. So our lodge meets twice a month, not year round, but they meet September to June, twice a month with a couple months in there where there's no two meetings because you got Thanksgiving because we meet on a Wednesday. So Thanksgiving, that month we have one meeting, and depending on where Christmas falls, one meeting in December. But that being said, that's anywhere from 16 to 19 meetings, depending on how many you have, okay? I've mentioned to brothers, hey, life's crazy, life's busy. Can we accomplish almost the same amount if we meet once a month for a stated communication, but year-round? Okay, so you have 16 meetings standard. You're at 12 standard meetings, doing one meeting a month year-round. And you just pepper in some special communications here and there for degree work. You just don't do that on a stated communication night. And the amount of resistance that we got, you would have thought I said we need to introduce a unicorn into the ritual work. That's the type of visceral reaction that we got. And I said, what we're suggesting is something that is probably going to be beneficial to the lodge for attendance, and we can have good attendance, but for attendance and for people to join Masonry. Because if you have two options in that month, you know, one brother might say, "Oh, I can make the first, or I'll make the second." If they can only make one meeting a month, they'll make more of an effort, in my opinion, if there's one meeting that they have to be at, than both. And it lowers the stress level. They're like, "Oh, I got 2 meetings this month. I got to get." And to be quite honest, the people, the movers and shakers of your lodge, your officers. If you want younger brothers to become officers and become active in your lodge, 2 meetings a month is a lot.
Yeah.
You know, now I get the sentiment of the older brothers saying, well, you know, this is what I do twice a month. But you could add in like that second, what that second meeting would have been. You could just have that be like, hey, let's just go to the lodge and hang out. You know, and we could still have dinner. You know, we just won't have a stated meeting.
Yeah, then the stress is off the officers.
Right, you come in regular clothes, you
Yeah.
relax, we have dinner together. You could still have a gathering moment. But you would have thought that I had said, like I said, like I was like, all right, in the middle of the second degree, what if the flying rainbow unicorn showed up? Like we could just work that into the middle chamber lecture. That'd be great. You know, does Masonry not do a good job of saying, hey, we need to pivot for the betterment of your lodge or the craft because of your area, because we don't want to change the way we've always done things?
I have to review my contract. Am I allowed to disagree?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I think, again, it's called an obligation for a reason, not a participation. I think going into when you go to join this fraternity, you know, hey, we meet twice a night, yada, yada, yada. And then also, you know, as a sideliner or somebody who just goes to lodge, you can go once, you could go twice. As an officer, you're obligated to twice, but that adds to the prestige, right? You're part of an officer line. You've undertaken certain responsibilities, and it just, you got more skin in the game. More skin in the game allows you to even add to the culture and one day wear the apron of master. I think we've made things easy in the past. For example, the York Rite. You know, back in the day, they would only take masters of lodges. I don't think allowing everybody to come in has enhanced the experience at all. It's taken away some prestige, if you ask me. And I think when you make things easier, it kind of takes away that prestige. And it creates avenues where guys are just like, oh, I'm over here, I'm at this concordant body. I mean, even the shrine was, you had to be in certain, you know, degree of Mason to join the shrine. I think those boundaries that were established back in the day were essential to the prestige, which also had members that would move the craft a certain way.
Do you think that the twice a month thing was picked because of a prestige thing, though, or it was just because that's people had time for that?
I think,
because
again,
that's the thing is, like, back then people worked 10, 15 minutes from
right,
their
you didn't
house.
work as far from your house.
You know, they worked a 9-to-5 job. The day ended a lot earlier than it did for people nowadays.
Wasn't
And
that
are
also-
you doing less? Are you not accomplishing as much? Because, like I said, once a month is 12 plus the 3 degrees. That's 15. That's one less than you would have been meeting twice a month, and you're not fatiguing the brothers as much.
When you
Are
stretch
you
it out over the year,
that's what I'm saying. Are you
don't-
accomplishing any less by stretching it out over using the summer months?
I like the idea of meeting all year round.
Right. I like it for other reasons too, and I'm sure it's the same as yours. Is that you're keeping the brothers in that mode, right? Yes, the people do, you know, they get busy, but you know what? They might carve out the time. Like, you know what? I'm going to make sure I make the summer meeting, because we only meet once a month. It's not really that big of a heavy of a pull to say to my wife, my family, whatever. You know, like, you know, it's the second Wednesday is when I go to lodge, like, and there's nothing going on unless you happen to be going away, you know. But
I think, though, in for speaking for our lodge in the past, because it was such a big asset that needed to be maintained. You needed the frequency in meetings because decisions had to be made. Now we have the Historical Society, which manages the building and its assets. But I think the lodge, when it undertook the responsibility of managing the building, you needed that constant communication of what needed to be done. So you had
were we doing it wrong?
Yes.
Because who was supposed to be doing that? If our Historical Society didn't exist, who was supposed to be doing that?
What, as far
taking
as
care of the building?
Well, you had the officers.
No.
Who?
Specifically who?
What do you mean? Help me out here.
The trustees.
Oh, right.
You didn't have to have meetings.
Right.
The trustees would do a trustees report. They would put in for a budget that would be placed out once. They would only have to come to the lodge and ask for money if there was an emergency. Like, hey, the roof fucking collapsed. You know. Other than that, they have an operating budget. They take care, and it was only supposed to be those 3 or how many trustees you have, 5 or whatever, that do that, make those decisions. You don't need to have a meeting to do that. That was their sole job,
Right.
was to do exactly what our Historical Society does. And they have their budget, and they used to have their own accounts too. They had their own operating accounts, their own bank accounts, and everything. So you didn't need to have a lodge meeting to do that. It would only be for like some enormous thing that they couldn't budget for in the budget in the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
You know.
So without going dark, how many meetings could we squeeze in a year?
Well, you've got the 12 obvious ones because it's once a month, and then you've got
Degrees.
What I suggested was you do the degrees not on a stated communication night. So you do that. We meet the 2nd and 4th. You would do the stated communication, the 4th meeting of whatever month you wanted to do it. That's 15 meetings.
And how many do we have now?
16.
And 3 of those meetings get
in
eaten
all
up.
reality, if you added in, like how we said we would do it, you could fit 4 degrees in a year. There's 16. You could do, like how we said, it should be staggered.
It's
and
tough.
One
it's
master
tough. Either way,
picks
people
up.
are going to adapt. It's about insinuating that culture.
The point of bringing that up was, should Masonry look at what the situation, every part of the country is going to be different. Every region within a state is going to be different. But what the hell was that? What is that? Is that currently happening at the lodge right now?
Yep.
At the lodge.
Let me see this thing. Give me your phone.
Oh, God.
That's a person dancing. Can I get it in so it focuses? I have to see if I can. That is what? That is
It's a 3rd degree
crazy.
at the lodge happening right now.
What is that? Oh my God.
So I like the idea of...
But my point of bringing this up is not so much what we are going to do, but should Masonry look at what's better for the lodge to grow, or what's better because it's the way we've done it.
Right.
And I think 2 things. One, you need to make a decision on what's good for who's going to be doing all the work. You know, like a lot of the old timers say, a lot of, younger brothers need to step up and do the work. Well, we would have time to do the work because the ones who are working to try to get to lodge are just trying to make enough time just to make a meeting, let alone go down and, put hands on fixing something. You need to free up a little time for them to do that other work that needs to be done within the building. And by doing that is saying stated meetings are only, say, once a day. And then it also frees up if you're going to do concordant body stuff, because now you're not you don't completely neglect your Blue Lodge because you're in another concordant body that meets another 2 days or another. And that's another thing. They meet too much, in my opinion.
Some steering has to happen, though, when the newer brothers come in, when you're obligated, you're newly obligated brother. There has to be an expectation set. And I think that's part of the culture problem but we allow brothers to just exist.
Mm-hmm.
You
but
know?
is that our job to say to them, are we asking them to, we're asking them to conform to us, but we have to look at, in generality, is our ask too much? In respect to what what life is like in this particular area we live in.
No, right. But as far as when you join a Masonic lodge, you know, our slang, you're hoodwinked, right, into doing things. But in being hoodwinked, you're led by somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing as joining a baseball team. You know, these are the games we have. There's practices, and in practice, you're allocated a position, right, that you want to partake in. You can't just sit there for that, then you don't join. I think, again, clarity and direction. I think it was Sun Tzu, right? The Art of War. If the army fails, it's not due to its inadequacy.
Hold on.
It's due
Keep
to lack
talking.
of direction. We have to define rules and roles, right? If a new member joins, hey, listen, we have. I don't want to get into the business structure of our lodge, so edit that part out. He's getting something.
So
Again,
I will say this. I probably would have joined Masonry a lot sooner.
I like this.
I probably would have joined Masonry a lot sooner if you guys had one meeting a month. Because I always waited until... I always told you for years that I didn't want to join something unless I could put the time in. And not being able to make both meetings was a deterrent for me to join. Because I felt like I wouldn't be giving it what I could.
Right.
Now, if you go to one meeting a month, that makes it a lot easier for people to attend and fit into their schedule, which will help draw new members, in my opinion.
I feel like some people also have a personality type. Some people, not all people, have personality types where they feel like that they aren't living up to it and they get embarrassed. So then they come less.
Yeah, I've seen that.
You're like, I miss this. So you know what I mean? Like shy people.
Absolutely.
So like now you're making it even worse. Like, you know, listen, if you can't make one meeting a month, you know, and you feel that way, now we can't do much for you.
Yeah.
But, you know, with the way, you know, if you want to get young, and let's be honest, that's what Masonry needs. Younger people in Masonry and Blue Lodge, not just the concordant bodies. The concordant bodies will be fine, okay? Blue Lodge, regular lodge, okay, needs younger brothers. A lot of them. The only way you're going to get them in the New York tri-state area is by having less of an ask on the time commitment for you have to be here to get stuff done.
Mandatory meetings.
Mandatory meetings.
Yeah.
Okay?
I agree.
The rest of the stuff is you entice them to be there by what you're doing. Okay? Because let's be honest. A regular stated communication outside of the lecture, if you have a good lecturing master or a lecturer in your lodge, it's just housekeeping.
And you would almost, so for us too, you would almost in rehearsals for rituals and stuff like that, or even rehearsals for opening and closings, I think you might even get a bigger participation in rehearsal
and committees.
Because it's like we only have one
right
a month. We gotta knock this
or
out.
committees.
Yeah.
Like think of like a committee.
Yeah.
Right, committees never get anything done. That's like the joke.
But that's scarcity creates value.
Right, but that's the thing. Like a committee, the committees could meet on that other day. When right now, when you ask for a committee, what is it? It's your active guys that end up on committees. Yeah. So now you got them coming twice a month. And then you're like, okay, but you also have to have a committee night. And then you also have to get something, you know, you have to have a come down to the lodge and spend some time fixing a light switch. And then you have your concordant bodies. And then you have your life on top of it's too much. You know, you're not having less, you're not really having that much less, quote unquote, less masonry a year by doing one stated communication and then your degrees. It's one less than a standard year.
How many lodges in our district do that currently?
A single meeting?
Mm-hmm.
None in our district.
Why is it not adopted?
But that's the thing. It exists in the state. Mm-hmm. Upstate, it's common. Upstate, it's common.
You think that's more for traveling
and
reasons?
Nassau County, I believe, has a few lodges that meet.
You have to put the side by side and put it on
right.
paper.
There are a few in Nassau County that have it. And the city, there is a bunch that Grand Lodge, they meet once. Upstate, there's a lot that meet once.
Do you think that'll take away, though, and this is just me playing devil's advocate, do you think that'll take away from the overall quality of experience due to
Not at
others
all.
not engaging.
I actually think I think it'll be more so. It'll make the meeting more. There'll be more there. It'll make the meetings better because the officers, the master, you have the time in between the meetings to prepare. Like,
Well, that's
you
brothers
can't
that
tell me like
understood-
a week in between. Like, it's tough.
Yeah.
I was the master. Sometimes, like, if you're in between meetings trying to plan for the next meeting, it's a lot. You only have a free week in between. It's 2 weeks, but like, you finish the meeting up, you're like, ugh, and then you kind of rest through the weekend, and then you got 1 full week, and then you're like, crap. The next meeting is next week, and weekdays, unless you're retired. And again, this is all based on my thought process of if you want younger brothers to build that muscle memory of being a Mason in lodge, you need to be able to get them there and get them involved. And you can't ask them for 2 days a month and get enough brothers, I think. In New York, on Long Island, it may be different in other parts of the country, but I'm saying in our particular case, and going back to the whole point of talking about what we should change in our lodge, is the overarching question was, do we do damage to ourselves? I'm sure it happens in other places where they're unwilling to change something that's so simple because it's the way we always done it.
Do you think that our current structure, masonry in the tri-state, New York, more Suffolk County I could comment on, but do you think we've made a mistake by catering more to the visitors as opposed to the people who partake in line, the officers?
What do you mean?
Just alluding to what you said. We've made it, well, if a brother misses a meeting, then, he can't, he's going to miss another meeting, and he's not going to partake as much. Like, do you think that we cater more to people who are sideliners versus people who are actually online?
I don't know if you're catering more to them. It's you're catering to the nostalgia of the brothers, the older brothers that have been there longer. That's what you're catering to. You're catering to that. You're catering to the fact that, listen, do I wish things were like they were back in the 1950s where, 5 o'clock, you punch your card, you're home in 10 minutes, you can get changed. You might even be able to eat some dinner with your wife before you go to the lodge, and you go to the lodge for a little bit, and you come home, and,
Or you were wearing what you wore to work to lodge.
Whatever the case is,
The whole dress was different.
Yeah,
Yeah,
whatever it is.
suit.
I wish that way was the way it was, but I don't. It's not now. You're talking about people with an hour-plus commute to work. The wives are working, or the significant others with the kids are working. So then now they're working all day. You're working all day. The kids are in childcare, and then you got to try to make time to go disappear now after working all day on a weekday to go disappear to go to lodge twice a month.
Now, what happens?
It's a much easier sell if you have a wife who's understanding of this is what you enjoy doing, where it's like, I only do this once a month.
Yeah, but then you also have...
I only do this one. Like,
absolutely.
It's a weekday. Like, it's not like, I'm missing like Sunday dinner.
Yep.
It's a much easier sell for a younger guy because honestly, that's who you're catering to at that point.
Well, we have to cater to younger people because if we don't,
you won't get them.
and what happens to masonry if no younger people join?
Right.
In a decade, 2 decades, it's going to fizzle out because there's nobody coming in to keep the tradition alive.
Right. And they can't enjoy it. And honestly, you have no idea how many people I've heard who've joined at 50 and went, man, I wish I did this when I was 25. I wish I did this 25 years ago.
I think if you cater, there's other ways. I think time is not the thing stopping brothers from joining, because if you would have joined...
No, but it's what makes you lose them, I think.
Yeah, but
if you do happen to get them, if you do happen to get them to join,
Mm-hmm.
I look at the amount of young brothers that you lose or fade away because it is taxing.
To me, that's trimming the fat. Unfortunately, because in any organization,
But is it trimming the fact because our standard of our ask is too high? We don't want to be. You want to be right in that Goldilocks zone of what you're asking for. You want it to be like, all right, well, it's we meet once a year, like, but you don't want it to be like, okay, you have to be here every week, no matter what, and if you don't, you're out,
Yeah, but we're also talking about the difference of one meeting, so the ask is almost identical.
Yeah, but you
Yeah, that's
also
true.
too you also have it's identical, but it's spread a longer duration, right? Because some people utilize those couple of months going dark.
It's only two
That's
months.
a couple.
Yeah.
That's a couple.
Yeah, it's only 2 months.
Yeah, but they utilize that. That's when they do a large percentage of the stuff. Hey, you got all of me, family wise, or if that's a vacation month or whatnot. I mean, you have to find out first. You need the data to find out why brothers would rather the two. You have a large
Exit
percentage.
interviews on everybody who ever leaves Masonry.
No,
We
but
could
you
take
have,
it in the comments. Brothers could say,
you could do an exit review. That's actually something that
you can't get brothers to answer the phone. How are we gonna do an exit interview on them?
I don't think time is the thing, because if a brother can't partake in lodge, then you know what, you come once. If not, then don't come. But you're in any organization, you're gonna have a small percentage of people doing the work of the greater whole,
Absolutely.
and those are the people that you should focus on. If people come, they're gonna come. If they go, they're gonna go. It's gonna happen. You're gonna have that. But to make the overall experience easier to
But
cater,
I don't think you're making it any easier. You're just changing.
you're making it more convenient.
Yeah, but you're also excluding a bunch of
You're not-
people that may.
Right. Well, that's my argument is that you are making it easier, but not. You're just changing how you come to those meetings. You're not changing the amount of meetings really by anything, by one meeting really.
I'm right now. I agree.
What I'm saying is
with
like
you, but
you're just packaging it in a different way.
I agree with what you're saying. For me, it would be easier. However, I also understand that there's a
But you
generation.
automatically equate it. Oh, man, this is easier. To it's watered it down. I don't see it as
Yeah,
it
because
has watered it down in any
masonry
way.
should be. If you're partaking in something like that, a lot of brothers that are older, that have been part of the craft for a longer time, they know and they look forward to those 2 meetings a month.
But they didn't experience. So this is my point now. You're asking the brothers of today to endure a hardship that brothers of the past didn't have to endure.
No,
Yeah, you
because
are.
I'm not asking anybody to join the organization.
No.
They asked, and we said, all right,
Listen,
if you want to come to, if you want to join this lodge,
you're not understanding what I'm saying. Let me rephrase it. Let me rephrase it.
Go ahead.
The hardship is life, society, and what the standard of life has changed.
Right.
They did not have to jump the hurdles we have to jump to make those 2 meetings. So you're
That's not
asking,
true necessarily. That's not true.
would you agree that brothers of the 1950s and 60s and 70s generally
On it.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
God, what was that?
I don't know what happened.
What was that?
Siri.
Siri getting.
She's on
I
it.
said on it.
Would you say that the Masons of the 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s, well, 40s, they had the war, 50s, 60s, and 70s, even, okay, had, talking about lifestyle, a man's life and a family's life. Generally, most people lived near or within a reasonable distance of where they worked. So their day ended a lot earlier. Would you agree?
Yes and no.
I mean, generally. I'm
There's
talking
there's-
in general.
Yeah,
In general,
but there's
when you
different-
visualize the 1950s,
Mm-hmm.
and I've, I have family and stuff, and I remember even like, when I was a kid, like both my parents worked, but that was the 80s.
Right.
When my grandmother and my grandmother worked. She was a secretary, but again, she was also she was a secretary when the kids were in school. Then she got out and she was home. Like the day ended at 5:00, they were home. That most people weren't commuting an hour plus either direction.
I still
That's
think
my-
you make
that's my
time for
point.
what you want to make time for. People go
there's
to
less-
church every
there's-
Sunday.
but
People
we-
go to the bar after work.
But
every
let's
day.
go to the Masonic symbol, right?
Mm-hmm.
The 24-inch. There's only so many hours
Right.
in that day. That's what I'm saying is the hurdle. We have to fit Masonry into a smaller piece of free time than they did. Would you agree? If not, and on top of that, we are asking now more of our spouses and significant others because they have to work for us to just live. When back then, and I'm talking about the brothers that are pushing back on this, that were, their heyday was like the 50s, 60s, and like early 70s. Their wives generally, if they did have a job, they were home early, so they had the early home, or they didn't work, and a single income was able to support the household if you wanted it to. Generally, not like all the time, but generally a single income could.
The
So
structure.
now the mom's home. Yeah, she's with the kids, and that is a hard job. But like, it's not like she worked all day, and now you're asking for even more. Those are the hurdles I'm trying to explain
I
that
understand.
we have to jump.
Trust me. I understand
Mhm.
exactly what you're saying, but my biggest thing is, if that was the system that you chose to join, then that's the system that you're obligated to kind of live up to those things, to make it different, because right now it doesn't fit. To me, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in changing certain things. Now, if it's going to benefit and a nameless generation that we don't even know, because at one...
My argument to you then now is it working?
Is it working? It's working.
Is it though?
So my
is
question would
Masonry
be-
as big as it was in the 1950s?
I think that's generational
But
values.
but I'm just saying it's not going to be the be all end all. Is say have one meeting and we're going to go back to the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
My point is it is a something you can try to fix now. That's an easy fix that could make it easier for people to make it to things. You're saying I joined and I knew what I was getting into, what I was joining. You're saying that the pain is now necessary to Masonry. I don't believe so.
I'm saying that I don't want that unsung, that nameless generation that you're speaking about. Yes, it's easier for you. It's easier for me. Me and you, we're very involved in our lodge, and we have been since go.
Mm-hmm.
We're very involved, so we would be able to get more done with that. But the newer generation that's going to bring in, I don't see it benefiting us. I think frequency is one of our strongest attributes here because we're such a big lodge. We have a large amount of attendance, more than most.
Mm-hmm.
We are one of the biggest lodges, membership-wise. I don't know about size-wise. But I think if you chose to join, you obligated, you said, hey, listen, we meet twice a month. We rehearse whenever we rehearse. Can you do this? And you say yes.
I feel like most people though don't know how much it is.
Regardless,
you could say it.
regardless. I think if you say yes.
What do you think, Jimmy?
I wasn't finished with my
Go
statement.
ahead, finish.
I wasn't finished
Go ahead.
with my statement.
Go
Listen,
ahead.
man,
Go ahead.
It's not in my contract.
No, I'm curious.
No, I to me, again, I think that's the problem with today's generation. Really,
Mm-hmm.
you're quick to do something to say, let me try it out. Let me see how it works. This is not really working for me. I understand the lens that you're going through. It's more efficient. It's beneficial. And when you present it the way that you presented it, which is, all right, we're getting actually one more meeting. We're meeting more frequently because it's throughout the whole. But if that was a new system, it would be flawless. But to change it and to get brothers to buy into your brand, they're not seeing it that way. They're seeing it as, well, let's just meet twice. It's more, what if I miss the first April meeting? Then I could catch the second April meeting. Unfortunately, that's, again, a small percentage.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. You're catering to...
Mm-hmm.
You're
right.
still catering
You're
to one
asking
generation.
more personal responsibility, I think, from a brother to say, I only have one meeting I gotta make. I think there's more personal responsibility saying, I am going to make that one meeting because, there's another meeting this month. I'll just make the next one.
So what was the pushback that you got?
the pushback was from the old timers who are like, well, this is how we always used to do it. You got to meet twice a month. Because I get it. That's what they do. It's what they have to do. Like that is like their activity. A lot of them. That's what they enjoy doing.
That's essentially what I'm saying.
But are we to the point where you're damaging the fact that you could be bringing in good younger brothers and not fatiguing? Listen, like, most lines are very old. Why are they old? Because the amount of time that you have to dedicate is, let's be honest, Danny, it's quite insane. And that's why you end up with like 3 or 4 brothers that do everything in the lodge. If there was less meetings a month, not less meetings for the year, less frequency a month, you have more time to do and prepare where it's not stressful. Like, it is a lot of work.
So for you, it's a lot of work. For you.
Well, but that's a whole different other story.
What would you do? So let's speak on us.
But how do you get brothers involved?
Well, I think again, if you had more time, you would fill that free time with more stuff to do.
Right, but not just saying.
So you're going to be just as busy.
No.
Because I know your personality.
Right, but that's I'm going to fill it up with stuff I need to get done for the lodge, and not just, okay, I got to get ready for another meeting. Okay, let's pay the bills. Okay, like it's you could have those fellowship nights where it's like I can just relax and have.
So I think that's really how it should be pitched.
Yeah, I'm not saying don't see each other. I'm talking about
to the shrine,
business.
like
I'm
shrine.
talking about getting business done, and also you could use it for committees. You could use it as a committee night. You could still get work done. It just that sitting in the lodge room, doing the ritual.
It's repetitive.
And okay, sickness and stress. Okay, we're gonna all right, lecture. Okay, and then everybody stand up and give your 2 cents about whatever stupid thing we're arguing about that night. Okay, let's go downstairs and go home. Like, the business part is I think is kind of what we don't need to beat the hell out of it. Like, you could think about the amount of engagement you could have of brothers when you could actually use committees where you could say, this is the committee night. And it's not any more of a monthly ask than it was now. Or you just have a night where listen, we're having dinner the 4th.
I've had brothers come up to me after going dark, and they say, man, I wish we met all year round. Oh, it's so good to be back. So, again, I'm an advocate for that.
And think about 4 weeks in between a meeting. People will be, like, excited, like, the meeting's coming up. I'm going to come to the meeting, like.
I think that would create a better situation. But, again, if you chose to join an establishment that meets twice, I think you took that obligation.
But this is where Danny it makes me chuckle. You almost are like, well,
playing the fence.
That's the thing is you get to go do the whole like, well, I joined this and this is what you told me, and then now we can never. You're almost like one of the old guys.
So
no, well,
I joined,
so
let's not change it because I agreed in the beginning, and therefore we should never pivot.
Listen.
That's what I'm just saying. I'm not saying it's a bad opinion.
I would go for the one a month because I know what it's like going twice a month. So it's like, wow, having that comparison allows.
And what
you
guys have to
make
remember
that.
too is like, and this is such a funny conversation to have on a podcast, right? But my point of this is you're not deviating from what masonry is, and it's a bylaws change. It could always be changed back. Like, just relax.
To me,
why don't we
it goes
try
hand in hand with discipline. Discipline is doing what you don't feel like doing all the time, but you obligated to do it. If I join a gym and I said I'm going to go 5 times a week, and I go 4th, that 5th time that I don't want to go, discipline got you that way. And this is why masonry has lasted so long, is because the discipline in we created a standard and we got to follow that standard even when we don't want to sometimes. That discipline got us into years and years and centuries, and this is why we're one of the oldest, is because we maintained what masonry was.
But was masonry founded? And Jimmy, I'll get to you in a second, I promise.
No
was
worries.
masonry founded in antiquity, saying you must meet twice a month and go dark in the winter? No, that's a modern thing. It worked because it worked at that time for the brothers of that time.
But I also think this is why we have so many lodges, right? Because one brother was like, I want to join that lodge, but I only have a horse. This guy has a car. So you know what? Let's take 15 brothers from this lodge. Let's split. Let's create a lodge over here because it's closer to our house. And that just kept happening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because, all right.
Right, because it worked for those brothers at that time. But for now, is it working for all the brothers? Is it working also? It's not just about people that aren't brothers yet. It's about, do you honestly think, in my opinion, do you honestly think that brothers would not be happier with meeting once a month and then adding degrees?
I think the brothers you have now would be happy with that.
Right.
With the exception of the older brothers.
The brothers we see every once in a while who are younger, because again, this is a younger guy thing. This is a younger guy problem. And when I say younger, I mean brothers that are still working. Brothers who are not retired. Like the brothers that should be getting the most out of this, okay, this I think would be beneficial to them. And on top of that, it will bring in new brothers because there is more time, but not more time.
Well, does
that make any sense? Like
this is why
it's the same amount of time. It's just packaged in a different way.
So we currently rent to a Prince Hall Lodge.
Yeah,
they meet once a month, and then they have another day of the month for fellowship or rehearsal, and they get more participation. So the data's there.
Yeah,
and they also, when it comes to some of the events that they throw, they get better participation, better engagement. So
quality over quantity.
Yeah, I could definitely see exactly what you're saying. But again, if you obligated to join a fraternity and this was the standard,
Jimmy, I got to hear your
so
opinion on this.
So I want to touch
on that point. Then never change anything.
No, it's not
never
anything.
Change anything from when you would never change it then, because everybody at some point you have to change it from when somebody started it.
No, understood. But there's certain things that are.
Sorry, Jimmy.
Again, certain things are a compass.
Poor Jimmy's never going to get a word in.
Certain things are a compass. Certain things are a square. Certain things move. Certain things don't. So the foundation was, when I first came in, when my investigation committee came to my place of residence, they said, we meet twice a month. Are you okay with that? And I said yes. Same thing when my job says, hey, we can call you 24/7. You're on call. Are you available? Yes.
But you're taking yourself as the example. You said yes, but how many people said no?
So
because of that.
Okay.
And do you think do you think any of that person would be any less better for Mason? Go ahead, Jimmy. I'll let you talk. I'm sorry.
So you kept saying you don't like the idea of catering to a generation, changing things to cater to a generation.
That we don't even know what they want.
So, but you're willing to still cater to a generation, just an older generation, right? And sacrifice new members and growing. What if I told you that if you sacrificed it, in 15 years, Masonry would start to dwindle because you didn't have the new members coming in? Would you still be willing to die on that hill?
So, yes. And this
so
is why.
You'd be willing to risk Masonry's history and potential future based on the fact that you would rather keep it and cater to the older generation because that's what they want, than try and cater to the new generation for the longevity of Freemasonry.
Yes. That's like saying, for me...
Man, that's a
here we go.
Die on your sword.
No, this is why. This is why. Again, it's better for me, the 1 month thing, once a month. I love that. But that's like saying... rewriting history, right? That we have to keep these older brothers around. They're used to coming every twice a month, let's just say.
Yeah.
I'm gonna cater to the older brothers as much as I can because that is the legacy, that is the elders. They're the ones that maintain the meat and potatoes of the fraternity. So the newer brothers that come around are gonna learn from those guys.
Correct.
I don't want guys in this fraternity that just do it because it's easier and it's convenient for them at this point. And they're like, I'd rather somebody like you, where I didn't get you earlier. I got you when you were ready.
Correct.
I don't want somebody who's, oh yeah, it's convenient for me now.
No,
There's a little bit of.
You're not answering the question of. Is the ask too much?
Yes, because I can't say, oh,
you have to answer that first.
All
Is the twice a month too much? Period. First.
well, the thing is, I'm not going to
Just
say
not outside of if Danny can do it. In general, is the ask too much?
Listen,
It's just my question.
For me, my answer still is going to be, I have brothers here that are part of this fraternity. I'm not going to sacrifice what they want for guys who I don't even know if they're good or not. I don't know if they're going to come into the fraternity or not. You guys are speaking about, the newer brothers might or ifs. I don't work in ifs.
I'm talking about current brothers
It's
too,
absolute.
with burnout.
No, that's different.
With burnout.
That's
It's
different.
both. It's
But you
both.
also fall in where you get in. There's brothers that don't join line because, like, for, brother Schaffer, he's never been online from what I know, from what he's told me, but his ritual work is stupendous. He's never joined online because he just couldn't commit. Mm-hmm. So that's a loss for us.
Burnout doesn't have to just be in the line. Burnout could be
come home. You got to iron a tux.
Burnout could be, I'm the one who cleans up, or I'm a steward, or it doesn't have to be in the line. Like, I just like to cook. I'm not in line, but I like to cook. Or
I think
I like to be on a committee and I want to help do this. Or I run downstairs. I run the catering, or I run however the lodge makes its money. Or I run the events, but then I run the events and I also got to come to all. It's just so much, That's kind of like my point is that does it aid to burnout? Because when you want to do certain things and you want brothers to progress and grow, they have to step into certain positions that require even more time. And are you at the tipping point already just with being a brother? And that's my point is I think you're at the tipping point of the amount of available time for a brother in our area at this time, just with being a brother. Like you're okay with it because this is something that is right
what I
now.
want. It's something what I want.
Right, but most people they need to get started, and I think the baseline is like at like your senior officer level, just with being like showing up, with twice a month. Because
I think it's tough also for progress because when you're more invested and you actually go through the grind and attend meetings and do this, you have more of a say in direction of the lodge. I think, again, when you make it too convenient, sometimes you're never going to get anywhere.
But think about the amount of things that we do not include people in that we should. Things, we used to do this, we used to do that. And what are we really saying to each other when we're like, there's no fucking time. There's no time for us to be like, okay, we're going to have this festival, this event. There's no time because
I agree with that.
There's no time, not because there's no time because the brothers who would have to plan it don't have time
or
to
the
do
assets,
it. They don't, whatever it is. I think that's the issue is the baseline brother with twice a month. Again, it may work in other parts of the country, but I think in this region, which has the highest density population, one of the highest besides like LA and all that stuff, where you could have a lot more Masons, I think the fact that the baseline third-degree Master Mason, what you ask of them, you're at like a line officer level amount of time just with showing up. With the twice a month, because you can't add in, there's no more time to add in a committee night. There's no more time to add in a cleanup crew night. And you want me to do a cleanup crew night and come to 2 meetings and sit on a committee night? That's half the month. And then you haven't even done a concordant body at that point,
So let me ask the question. Is it our responsibility as Masons to nurture, grow, and preserve the fraternity for younger generations? Is that part of the responsibility we undertake as Masons?
Well, it depends. If you ask a purist, a traditionalist, back in the day, you would have to ask some guys would ask 3 or 4 years, 5 years to become a brother, and that brother would say, "No, you're not ready. No, you're not ready." And then all of a sudden, we get into present day masonry, and anybody could get an application.
And that was a change of the times. But is it our
I don't
responsibility?
like that, though.
But is it our
Yeah, but we
responsibility
could change that now.
to preserve, nurture, and grow the fraternity for younger generations so that the history of Freemasonry doesn't fizzle out?
I think it's not so much a younger generation thing. I think protecting the integrity of the craft.
Yes,
is-
but without
is
younger
objective number
members, it's eventually going to fizzle.
You're absolutely right. But again, at the same time, too, it's like, I don't want to get into that. I'm not going to go touch that. But there's process and
Now I want to
procedure.
know what was going through Danny's head now.
There's
'Cause
process
Danny
and
doesn't say
procedure.
that often.
All right, think about it this way, right? Let's just get there's process and procedure that keeps the integrity of any system.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what? America is an older civilization. The population is very old. Just let people into the country. Don't worry about citizenship. Don't worry about anything else. Just let them in because we need younger people. The American values
Bad
start.
example.
Yeah, I don't think
bad,
that correlates.
bad example.
All right, so
we have
edit it
plenty of young people here.
No, but I'm
Bad
saying,
example.
But I'm just saying, the American values, in essence, would kind of fall to the side because you want a younger generation here.
I think you're kind of.
Yeah.
Masonry is the same thing. It's the same thing. I want younger members, so let's make it fun. Let's make it a regular club.
So
See, that's you think that.
I'm not basing it on what you said, though.
No, I'm saying
Because I agree with what
right.
you
I'm
said.
just saying. I'm thinking you're saying that. Yes, it should be difficult. I think you're seeing it as. I don't see it as us doing this makes it any less difficult, or you look at it as lowering the bar.
No, I'm not.
I don't think that's where I'm getting. That's what I'm
Right.
getting. I'm not saying to
answering-
lower the bar.
I'm answering your argument, but not your reasoning.
Mhm.
And your reasoning is a perfect reason.
Mhm.
I've seen it. I've seen it happen with the Prince Hall Lodge.
Yeah.
I've seen exactly what you're saying. If I don't have to make this mandatory meeting that I have to plan for,
Yeah.
then I can plan for more fellowship. We can have more group events. We
Right.
can make time for masonry in a way that it's an enjoyable. Where all right, we're having more events, more members who are coming in who are not Masons. My cousin just came. Hey, I like hanging out. These guys are
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
You know what? How do I join? Stuff like that.
I got a
But
question.
And wouldn't
Yeah,
it be
good.
even more like when so the
More
hoops
homey.
and the bars we
Yes,
have to make
absolutely.
people. Yes, we could still be more selective. You have to come more before we hand you a petition. You're not that doesn't change because how many times you meet a month.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, I think it'll work in favor of it because what's going to happen is, I think, attendance will rise on those
and that
communications.
that should be the argument.
And now a brother's walking in, a potential brother, a candidate is walking in and he's seeing, holy crap, there's 70 people here.
Right. But that is what the argument should be. And I think there was too much emphasis in, you know what, it's asking too much of the brothers. Where that automatically leads to somebody defending. What do you mean it's asking too
No,
much?
He is right.
What
about
I'm
that.
saying is if you present it in the way of, hey, this is going to enhance the whole experience of this lodge.
I mean, still don't do the normal thing I do, which is just bull in a china shop
Yeah,
and just
yeah.
ram the round peg in the square hole.
You just witnessed a healthy conversation between me and
So I have a question.
and this is why I'm excited. Zach. Oh, this is great.
So I have a question. Is there any records of how back in the day, how often lodges used to meet?
Of course there is. I mean, most lodges don't change that. Like, I mean, often. I'm sure it has changed. I mean, ours has always been the second and fourth. So you'd have to look at the original charters.
Well, so that's my question.
You'd have to look at the original charter of the lodge. I mean, I could probably ask the Livingston Library to give me a breakdown of when things have changed or when lodges meet. I mean, I have access to the Grand Lodges systems.
Well, because I'm curious.
To see when lodges meet now, but not like what they had met. I'd have to see their original charter. Grand Lodge might have a record of that written somewhere, where it's like searchable.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a million lodges, you know, so.
Because I'm just curious as to what the average amount of time lodges meet are in New York State, the U.S., and internationally.
Right.
So to speak. Because who's to say the majority aren't once a month?
I mean, a lot are. I mean, I know I think Ian's saying in like Scotland, it's once a month.
So
They
then,
also
so then
take
we're
longer
talking
to do
about
degrees.
But so
right,
then
that's
we're
the other
also
thing too. Is like it also kind of slows it down, like
Yeah.
the whole process of getting through the degrees too.
so then you talking about preserving the fraternity might not necessarily be the case, because if the older fraternities in England and Scotland were doing once a month,
Right.
then we actually went and changed it for a different generation.
I'm sure it's a mixture too.
Well,
like
again,
it
I
is
was
here
just
also.
answering your statement.
Danny
I wasn't
just-
necessarily answering my argument. I'm with you guys, but I have to play
No.
the silent hole. So
Danny likes just causing chaos in the conversation.
no.
But you were talking about preserving the
No, you
history.
said would I sacrifice the older generation for the newer? No, would I sacrifice the newer generation that doesn't exist for the older guys?
Yes, but previous to that, you were talking about how if it's been two, we shouldn't change it because that's what it's always been.
In
But it
essence,
might not have always been that way.
Yeah.
Predating us.
Right.
So then we came in as the new kids on the block and was like, ha,
We need more time.
we're going to do 2 times a month.
I also knew that George Washington lived 45 miles from his lodge
And galloped on a horse.
during the French Indian War.
Did they meet twice or once?
Probably once.
If
Probably
they
once,
if they
probably
meet
once.
if they met once, we go to once.
Yeah, George Washington does once, we do once.
No, they only met on a full
That's
moon.
it. End it.
So
George
let's go.
Washington.
Let's go back to the full moon. Anytime there's a full moon, we'll meet.
And anybody's
There
got
you go.
that's got something to say
Did we
different.
get, do we
ends
get
up with
guys
Woodson.
ask me like, when's the next meeting? Do you think they're gonna be able to figure out when the next full moon is? I'm like, bro, it's the second and fourth Wednesday. Like it's been since like the beginning of time.
It every full moon in Aquarius.
Yeah, on Aquarius, and second Thursday when it's above 60 degrees but below 63 degrees.
Yeah,
It's
that's
you know,
That's good stuff. I'm gonna get canceled.
that's it. You screwed up, man.
Serendipity. This is a pod.
God almighty, the serendipity.
Came full circle.
Like been asleep for 2 episodes.
Next episode is we're going with time and burnout. This is remember the whole theme of this season is the man in the arena.
Oh yeah, I get it now.
All right.
Now it clicks.
Right. Well, the man in the arena is the fact is how do you get a brother to get into the arena being masonry. And so we did time. This was time, right? How much time? Now we got the concordant bodies, the other rings.
Well, can we do into the next?
Yeah,
subject?
we're gonna do it on
But
the next episode, though.
Right, but I just want to kind of do one of the cool Matt things where he kind of alludes to what the next episode's gonna be. What brings brothers into the lodge? Masonry, or how a mason conducts himself?
I think I'd add one more to that is the people.
I didn't. Another
That's
one
what I'm
to that.
saying. Essentially, you seeing a brother and like, wow, this guy's honorable, the way he carries himself, and he's part. That's what brought me into masonry. All of these historical figures, anybody who I've really respected, they're all part of the same organization. What's that about?
Well, so there you go. The fourth one I would add to that is just the mystery of it. A lot of people are just intrigued because they don't know enough about it.
So that'll be the next episode then, when we start talking about the
Moral
more
fiber?
interesting, the more fellowship-oriented concordant bodies. Because we've beaten some of the esoteric stuff to death in past episodes, but we'll fit some of that in this season. But some of the fun and frolicking bodies of Freemasonry and how they can help Masons and help Masonry. How's that sound?
I like it.
All right. Thank you all for joining us on this episode of the Fourth Part Podcast. Safe travels, Danny. Thanks, Jimmy.
Take care.
My
Safe
pleasure.
travels.